As you can see, I am recording Let's Be Ambitious, blooming ambitious. Who's doing the name and who's doing the quote for the song?
I'll do the name.
Okay, well, the name of this one is Stars of Stage and Screen, as you know.
Oh,
But you want to do the other part, as you can see right now.
yeah, I'll do the other part.
Okay, and action. Stars of stage and screen.
Jared Donald's Dunn.
Stars of stage and screen.
I'm putting on hats.
Stars of stage and screen.
Glass hole, state raised.
Stars of stage and screen.
Keep screaming your name at them.
Stars of stage and screen.
Jared Donald's Dunn.
Stars of stage and screen.
Soaking a tampon in grain alcohol.
Stars of stage and screen.
Jared Donald Dunn.
Stars of stage and screen.
Jared Donald Dunn.
Welcome. Is there like a robot next door or something?
There's a helicopter just gone over, but it was super low.
Welcome to Space Station USB 7. No relation. At the edge of the trouble belt. I am 2612626.
And I am 1561414.
We are holographics, scanning radio waves of ether.
We went to Earth 9 and grabbed these DVDs of HBO Silicon Valley show.
What is a Jared? The Earthlings call us spoilers.
Tonight, Star of Stage and Screen, number Gwart.
So today we are looking at Donald Jared Dunn, Hooley executive and right-hand man to head of company Gavin Belson, who quit to work for Pied Piper. What do we need to know?
He's great. He's a very funny character. He was raised in foster homes, I think. I don't know if it was by one specific person. He went to Vassar College earning a BA in economics.
That's true.
You know about him?
I know a lot. One of my favourite things about him is that he seems to have a hidden backstory, a little bit like Creed Bratton from our first episode. We seem to like characters that have a hidden backstory. His real name is Donald, but Gavin Belson, the head of his company, started calling him Jared on his first day, and the name stuck. He has no idea when he was born. Somehow he has a 40-year-old godson and lots of elderly friends, including one called Gloria, who once he referred to by saying one of his friends had an enormous heart, but not like my deceased friend Gloria, which the doctors should have really have caught because her knuckles were gargantuan. He seems to have lost quite a lot of his family at some point. He once tried to persuade another CEO, I know what it's like to only be able to rescue half of your family. It's awful, but what can you do?
Yeah, a lot of him is, there's a lot of dark throwaway lines. The Office did a lot with Erin, where she was like, had like a tragic orphan story. Like she says something like, when I was a kid, my hair was my room, and stuff like that. Amped up and way more dark.
Well, Jared says something similar. He said, I can feel at home wherever I am by simply imagining my skeleton is me and my body is my house. That way I'm always home.
Yeah, they're running with the tragedy. It's fun to have a tragic character who's sort of wildly optimistic. It's sort of Neddy on a dark level. He's never sad about anything really, or he's not sad about these sort of things. They're just very matter of fact. Even
later, when we get possibly his saddest moment in one of the clips, he still just seems mildly annoyed. He only really gets angry once when he gets really angry, but even when his saddest moment, it's more of a disappointment and an anxious twitch.
Yeah, he gets over stuff quickly.
Well, I think he's had a very hard life. The joke is that he went through some real tough stuff, and he just lets little hints go, right? So he says, so they're trying to put some apps on the phone, and Richard, his boss, says it's like forced adoption through guerrilla marketing. And Jared says, well, as a product of forced adoption, I can assure you there are consequences. Harriet Tubman, the African-American lady who oversaw the Underground Railroad, the free slaves, was his imaginary friend, who he says, when I was little, I used to pretend that I shared a room with Harriet Tubman and we were always planning our big escape.
There's something on with Gabe on The Office as well, actually, about the Lincoln episode where everybody keeps they go to like the Lincoln Museum and people keep following him around because they think he looks like Abraham Lincoln for some reason.
So Gabe is Zach Wood's character on The Office, and it's essentially the same character as he plays on Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I'd say he's like a Jared prototype. He's sort of not got as much darkness, and he's not got as much heart as Jared. Gabe's a lot sort of just creepier and weird.
He's half Apache. He says, "You need me, that half crazed, half Apache who'll do anything to get your back. I'll scalp Gavin if I have to, and I'll take the rest of those pale-faced sons of bitches. I'll kill them with knives. I'll kill them with guns. I'll kill them with my hands. I'll talk them into suicide." We could go on for a long time with these. I am going to add a couple more. This is a classic one. If you keep screaming their name, it forces the assailant to acknowledge you as human. It's good to face your fears. I was scared of intruders until I had one in my room, and then I realized, if they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me, because he kept whispering that he was. I've never felt like anyone's bro before. The only people who have called me that were assailants.
My two favourites are when he says something like, they just pull up to somebody at the side of the street and he says something. He says, "Are you looking to die today, motherfucker?" And then the other one is calls Richard a reckless. He says, "Look me in the eyes, you reckless child," to Richard.
Yeah. After Richard's basically bombed the company for the 4th time in a row.
Yeah.
But he's also good at giving pep talks. The one he gives to Richard, he says, "Hooley, the old company, was like an abusive spouse to me. Like that guy who married Julia Roberts in Sleeping with the Enemy? It was dehumanizing. But then you, Richard, you pulled me out of the life and you gave me hope and you gave me a sense of self-worth, like Richard Gere did to Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. Every day has been like that shopping spree. I'm putting on hats." Then after Jared tells Richard that seeing him sell his company would break his heart, Richard asks, "What, like Julia Roberts in My Best Friend's Wedding?" And Jared says, "Yeah, I've never seen it." So there's a bit of a Julia Roberts thing going on. He does another point and said, "You're going to look like Richard Gere from Pretty Woman. Maybe tonight you'll fall for a radiant sex worker." With the best of intentions.
He says something really early on about Amy Winehouse as well that I can't remember, but it's the first time that they all sort of look at him because he's jumped over the line quite significantly.
Well, that's the thing. He doesn't know where the line is, right? So he escalates it very, very quickly. And Zach Wood says, characters' blind spots are funny. So he says, if someone's deliberately malicious, I don't think that's funny. But if someone just has a blind spot and they're really doing their best, I find that both tragic and funny. It was easy to make Jared hopelessly pathetic rather than finding... The challenge was to find new ways to preserve his nobility in the face of constant insult, an exhausting idea of what it means to be a man and the torments of a miserable childhood. And the guy who plays Gavin Belson described Zach Woods as the greatest improviser on earth, because apparently quite a lot of his lines were improvised. The one about grain alcohol, which I don't think Jared said, was one of his lines. A tampon soaked in grain alcohol.
He's I've listened to his interview with Maron, and he seems more like he's definitely got traits of these characters, but he's self-aware about them, so he can control them and sort of play into them rather than be that person. Like, it's similar to Creed. There's a lot of Creed character that is like the things he says and does, I imagine, are quite real life Creed, but they're just amped up.
Yeah, the Larry David effect as well, right? George in Seinfeld is a slightly weirder version of Larry David, and then that's amped up even further. Larry David is like a super amped up version of George, who's already an amped up version of Larry David.
Precisely. And the Larry David in Curb is just an amped up. He's always said they're how he would want to react to the situations in real life, but not how he actually reacts. So it's sort of, I just imagine it's fun for Zach Woods, because he's in, the only other thing I can really think of him is he's in the Ladies Ghostbusters at the start.
Okay.
Just playing this guy again.
The same guy.
Yeah, he does it well. So
It's a great character. He goes up to some police for some reason. He's trying to get himself arrested. And he says, "What if I threaten you guys? Just hear me out, you fucking pigs." I hope that you get cheated out of your overtime. And last one, and then I think let's move into some content. But his childhood toy was a Ziploc bag called Winnie. Meets Richard's date, and he says, "Oh, I have a stuffed animal with the same name." Then goes on to explain that it wasn't technically an animal; it was a Ziploc bag stuffed with old newspaper with a smile drawn on it.
That almost made it into the clip.
Very, very funny. The first time we see him, he is over-explaining the concept of Grinder to his boss, who actually owns shares in Grinder. Just like Creed, the website did run a blog style thing, so I will read later one of his diary entries. They're not super funny, and I don't know if they were written by Zach. But, anything to say before we move into content?
This is probably the funniest batch of clips we've looked at throughout the entirety of all three casts, I would say. Very funny show.
Originally, I was saying let's do Jin Yang, because Jin Yang's funny, as
Yeah, I
is
like
Erlich. It's a very funny show. We haven't mentioned the name of the show yet. I don't think. Did we?
I mean, not at all.
I don't think so. Doesn't matter.
I think I said it. I said the DVD thing.
Maybe. Oh, yeah, you did. Clip 1. Clip 1, Series 1, Episode 2. It is night. Suburbs. A man walks up to a house. He peers into the window. Richard says, "Holy shit," as this creepy man's face appears looking in instead of pushing the doorbell. Guilfoyle says, "What the fuck is that?" "That is Jared Dunn," Richard says. "He works for Gavin Belson." Moves towards the door. Richard opens the door, and Jared quietly and sweetly but creepily says, "Hi, sorry, did I scare you? I know I have somewhat ghost-like features." Jared is wearing his classic grey shirt and carrying a bottle of champagne. He has big goofy ears and eyes. Jared continues, "My uncle used to say, you look like someone starved a virgin to death." Richard shuffles nervously with his hands in his pockets and says, "Yeah, I see it." He's suspicious of Hooliman. Jared creepily looks at Big Head and Dinesh and waves. "I heard you were having a launch party. Am I early?" he asks in a puzzled voice, given the only people in the room live there and seem to be working. Richard, deadpan, "No." Pan back to the team, staring back at him. "Well then, a gift of congratulations." Jared offers the wine. Richard says, "If Gavin sent you here, I just want to let you know I've turned him down. We're going with Peter Gregory. I'm picking up my check tomorrow. So I made my decision." Jared says, "That's not why I'm here. It's just," nervously he says, saying you say no to $10 million to build your own thing. There's something just very exciting about that." Richard looks down.
Yes, I left that. I was going to cut it off after the stab the virgin to death thing, but I thought the last thing he says sort of just sets up why he's part of the gang, really. So it's pivotal in a way. He's very, I was going to say demure, but I don't think that's the right word. He's sort of like a turtle, like if he had a shell to retract into, which when you contrast that with Richard, who's exactly the same, but for some reason there's like a power that like Jared just gives the power to Richard immediately, even though they're both, it's like a level playing field. Guilfoyle, Martin Starr, I imagine would be the boss of the thing if he had the enthusiasm to Tim.
The kind of joke is that none of them have the skills to lead. Jared has all these hidden skills. They're all a bunch of clowns and losers. Especially when Dinesh finally takes over and he runs the company to trillions of dollars of debt within days. Big Head's completely out of it. Jin Yang's a nutcase. Erlich's the best boss of the lot, really.
He only cares about himself.
Exactly. He's incredibly selfish. But Jared's got all of these hidden skills, but I think he sees something in Richard, because Richard has, of all of them, he does have this kind of this spark to do something different. It's not 100% convincing, because it all kind of just like magically comes to him, but he has something, right?
He has a Flanders level of optimism. No matter what sort of badness happens to Jared, he will always sort of see the bright side of it.
Absolutely, and it does set up that Jared was quite bold to jump out and leave Hooli and go, and that's why Richard constantly running the entire venture into the ground, and other people too, and he just puts up with it time and time again until eventually he does snap.
Yeah, he mentions his uncle in this clip, so I don't know if that's I imagine that's the uncle of the family that fostered him, so like a foster uncle. So just saying this to him, I imagine at a relatively young age.
I wonder if it's Uncle Jerry, because apparently Richard says at one point, "You're always telling me how you spent your entire childhood pretending that everything going around you was okay." Jared calls it Uncle Jerry's game, which is either mildly disturbing or very disturbing, and depending on how you interpret that.
There's a lot of disturbing stuff, and again, it is funny and not seeing it and just getting these glimpses of. Well, it wouldn't be funny at all to see like a Jared childhood flashback.
No, young Jared would not be a pleasant show. Wouldn't be in the same vein as the charming young Sheldon.
No, certainly not.
Now in its 4th season.
Don't.
Clip 2, Season 1, Episode 6. Jared is peering inside to a car. It is day. He is very curious. It is a driverless car. He gets in, looks around, and the car says, "Select destination." Jared says, "Hi, I'm going to 5230 Newell Road." Car then says, "Destination override," and begins to go for number 1 Gregory Drive, Aralon. "Car, Mr. Carr," says Jared. "Aralon is an island, so how will we..." He realizes they're at the docks. "Oh, no, stop." The car drives into a container. Jared is shouting at the car, "Let me out." Tries to open the door, but cannot. Tries to sound the horn, but it will not sound, and he keeps saying, "Please honk, please honk." He says, No. He's tapping on the window as the workers close the crate. "Please, please." The crate is held up by a crane. "Oh, that is not good," says Jared. Carr says, 103 hours to destination. Entering sleep mode. Enjoy your ride.
Yeah, I put this one in because this sort of breaks him, I think. Like, it's still very early on. I thought it was later than that. But yeah, you just like we've just said about him being optimistic. There's no optimism whatsoever here. There's nothing he can do. And then he wakes up in a factory, doesn't he? And there's still no people there.
Yes, on the island.
Yeah.
Because the island's basically Peter Gregory's island, isn't it? The billionaire. And
I think so, yeah.
He's going to, they're just setting it up. So he's the only human potentially on the island.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it's explained how he got back.
I don't think it is. I think he just appears back the next episode, but who knows? Maybe in a Jared Too Late, we'll find out.
Yeah, that's a good one for, just seeing him in a dramatic situation. So this is the kind of thing you can hear him optimistically telling a story about years down the line. So it's
just mentioning it in passing that he was locked in a container for 100 hours.
Yeah, this is one of the rare occasions where we see it. So it sort of validates the other stuff that he says as well, doesn't it, a bit?
A life of misfortune that he's just shrugged off as if it was a day at the beach.
Exactly.
Clip 3. Jared, they're now in the big offices of the new Pied Piper that's now making lots and lots of cash. And there's an intern now called Holden, who is actually a qualified lawyer, but is treated as if he's a high school student. Holden is cleaning a plate in the Pied Piper kitchen. He sees the reflection of Jared in the plate, like in a horror movie. He turns and Jared is not there. He looks in the plate again. No Jared. Carries on cleaning the plate. And then he hears, "Hi, Holden," as Jared is stood next to him, quiet and creepy with sad, malevolent eyes. Holden says, Oh, hi, Jared." Jared has a pained face and a nervous laugh. "Can I ask you a question?" Holden says, "Of course." "Did you tell Richard to tell me that you liked the sandwich you made for him?" Which he had. Holden looks nervously. "No." Jared's face goes through several doubtful emotions. "Is that the truth?" "Yes," says Holden, very, very nervous and very worried. Jared shakes his head and says, "Okay." He looks somewhat distraught. "Okay," he says again, shrugs his shoulders. "Good job with that plate," he says. Holden says thanks, breathes heavily as ominous music plays. He walks to the other side of the room and takes a blast of his inhaler.
Yeah, this is a great one. It puts him in a completely different light to everybody, how everybody else sees Jared. Just this one kid. You can sort of see that he's mentally unhinged. And when he's saying in this clip, like, "Oh, okay," towards the end, it looks like he's stopping himself from having a complete feral breakdown. And I think that's what I think this kid's called Hunter, is he?
Holden.
He eventually breaks him, doesn't he?
Yeah. And he's screaming and jumping on the table like a Wozniak.
Yeah, and he's screaming "kill them all" as well. So.
I'm not sure. It's towards the end of the party where he totally loses it. But Holden does tell, I think, Richard to say that he liked the sandwich because he was nervous that he wasn't doing a very good job. And it's interesting that this is the only person who's kind of below Jared, right? Everybody else is at or above his level, so he treats them with absolute respect. But anyone who's below him, he treats them basically like an animal.
Yeah, it's a good contrast. This is a good thing to introduce, like the person that the bullied person bullies. There's probably some more examples. Back to The Office, you kind of got Michael and Toby, and there's no reason for it because he doesn't often do it in front of other people either. Like it is sort of like a psychological, like he's trying to psychologically mold this kid into something, but he's doing it with like fear tactics, and he just sort of wants to break him.
Yeah.
He sort of he looks at it like a success when he sees him like broken, like showing like Dinesh says, like what did you do to him or something, and he's sort of like looking at him like smiling like lovingly.
It's that relationship. If you think of Basil Fawlty and Manuel, the waiter, or Blackadder and Baldrick.
I didn't see that one.
You never seen Blackadder?
I have not.
Oh, good Lord. Blackadder 4 particularly, very funny, but Blackadder 3 and 4 are where Baldrick really gets it. Nothing good happens to him. And 2, to be honest, but he basically is just a figure for Blackadder to take out all his anger on.
To bring it back to The Simpsons, it's like if Smithers had a Smithers.
Yeah, but Smithers might be kinder, but it might then bring out that malevolence. But the thing is that Jared already has just hints of his darkness and rage scattered all the way through.
Yeah.
And talking of rage, clip 4, season 6, episode 2. Richard is now back in the old house, which is now being run by Jin Yang, and Jared is leading the floor. Gwart, who is a large, bespectacled lady who is very silent, is kind of the lead coder in the house. Richard's in the house, and he says, "This is Gwart," he says mockingly. Richard says, "This is Gwart," he says mockingly. And Jared is kind of like starting to give him like a look of, you better back off a little bit. Gwart is reclining silently. "This is who you're walking away for," Richard says. "She's your new little code girlfriend?" Jared says, "Richard, don't." "This googly-eyed, Yahoo drinking..." Jared, the angriest I've ever seen him, says, "No, no, 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 no," and bangs his arms. Richard realizes what he's done and starts to back away quickly. "Oh God," he says as Jared walks towards him aggressively. Richard starts to run around the table. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Jared aggressively approaches him. "No, no, 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 no." Jared says, "I ought to knock your teeth out, you bitch-made motherfucker." Richard is now panicking. He has his hands up. "I was state raised," Jared screams. You think I'm scared to catch a case on some bullshit?" He's getting very, very agitated. Richard's like, I'm sorry. What? I didn't mean it." Jin Yang arrives with a shotgun. "You keep her name out of your skanky little mouth, you little bitch," says Jared to Richard.
Says, "You little bit."
Little bit. Jin Yang, now somehow the voice of reason, says, "Hey, this is a place of business." Jared grabs the shotgun and points it at Richard. "Oh my God, don't shoot me." Richard runs for the door. It's a pellet gun. Jared in his beautiful green vest shouts, "Dope, bled, peckerwood, motherfucker." Jin Yang is now crouching down behind the table, and Jared is hitting the door as Richard has run into the bathroom and locked the door. Jared is hitting the door with the butt of the gun, shouting, "Get checked in, ho." Richard escapes through the window as Jared starts to kick the door through. Now, apparently, I looked on Reddit. "Get checked in, ho," according to the Reddit people, is telling Richard to metaphorically register with some sort of official entity so they can commence fighting. I don't know. And then he shouts, "You want to dance on a blacktop, homie?" Jared apparently is challenging Richard, the homie, to a fight dance on the street, i.e. blacktop. Richard continues running from the house as Jared comes onto the lawn and shoots him in the ass with the pellet gun. Richard shouts, "What the fuck," and runs off.
I think that's our best clip to date.
It is one of the greatest clips in sitcom history. Absolutely. And especially if you've been watching these characters for 6 seasons, slowly move towards this.
Yeah, particularly particularly when because Richard sort of, the way he says googly eyed, like he almost stops himself and then goes for it, is from that point on, it's just non-stop laughter, really. So then Jin Yang comes in, who is my favourite character on this show, I think. And just like, he's always quite, he doesn't take anything seriously, really, does he? So he's just sort of calmly say this is a place of business, and then doesn't expect, as soon as Jared grabs the gun, he like becomes really serious really quick and like just runs. Yeah, this is an anger that I think has been building his entire life. Like, I think he's aiming this at a lot of people.
It's an American Psycho situation in many ways.
Just, what's that movie where the guy goes insane in McDonald's?
Falling Down.
That, it's reminiscent of that, where he's just had enough. And I don't know why what's the name? Quart. Don't know why it's so specifically that pushes him over the edge.
Well, the series has been, he's left Richard's Pied Piper company when they weren't doing so great. I think he left to set up another, or maybe he left when they were doing real well. But anyway, they weren't very happy about him leaving, and he basically went back to the old house and set up a new coding kind of den with this basically one person, Guar, who doesn't speak and barely plays any part, although she does turn up towards the end of this season to kind of help out a little bit. Spoiler.
Yeah, I think I've only seen the last two or three seasons. I've only seen those episodes like once, and I barely remember them now because it was a while back.
I think it does drop off once Ehrlich's gone, and once they've kind of made their money once, it's then a kind of just a few boom and busts of getting money and then losing money. And there's a cryptocurrency story which is pretty good, but basically I think the first three to four seasons are where the gold happens, and then really Jin Yang and Jared carry most of that with the comedy.
Yeah, I'll be inclined to agree. He just can't contain the rage he's been holding for years, and I think if it was a real gun, he still would have shot it.
Oh yeah, I think there was a red mist coming down them. I don't think there was any reason he would have grabbed anything, an axe, or started throwing monitors at him. Yeah. Now, if that was one of the best clips, this one isn't far behind this next one. So Jared is obviously, as you've mentioned, he's been adopted, and he finds his biological family, although at one point he does say that he found his father work in a militia in the Ozarks, which I guess is not true, because we're now in suburban California, I guess. I don't know where exactly the house is, but he's now sitting with his biological parents in the living room, a very nice living room, guys. And he sees a photo of the family with the mom and dad and three kids, and he says, "Oh, you guys had kids after me?" We see a nonchalant middle-class mom and dad, and they said, well, we had one after you. And Jared says, "Pardon? I'm not sure." And he says, "Well, Pete and Lisa were before you." And he says, "I don't understand. I was your third child and you put me up for adoption." And they kind of like shake their head a little bit. And he says, "Yeah, it just got way too difficult for us. We couldn't go on as many first-class flights. You know, two parents and two kids, that's a full row, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. So, you know," and Jared goes, "So you gave me up to simplify your first-class air travel?" And the dad says, "No, it's more complicated than that. We had car travel and taxis." And then they say, "Yeah, we never traveled by train." And Mum says, "I don't do boats." And Dad says, "Well, you didn't know that trip down the Rhine." And Mum says, "Well, I said I did." Just like as if none of this is just like laughing playfully while they're telling Jared the most horrific stuff. And Mum says, "Anyway, when we gave you up, we realized we'd made a huge mistake." And Jared, like slightly hopefully, says, "You did?" And Mum says, "Yes, we realized we did actually want a third child and started trying almost immediately. And we looked out because Donald is the best of the bunch." And Jared shrugs and says, "Donald?" Because that's his name, right? And he says, and Dad says, "Yes, we love this name, so we just wanted to use it again." So they had a third kid. They also called Donald. They just ignored Jared.
This goes on. I was going to leave it in, but it was getting long. But it goes on for them to, like, the three kids turn up, and Jared thinks that they've been invited to meet him, and then the dad introduces him as like Ken, the guy who's
cable guy,
yeah.
And Jared plays along.
It's just heartbreaking.
Jared actually just plays along, pretends he's a cable guy.
Yeah. It is. It's the saddest scene because even just his face, like when there's some things where he looks like he can't believe this is happening to him. Like he can't believe what he's hearing as they're just so casually telling this story.
He does this kind of scrunched up thing with his face where you can see that he's just in immense pain, but all you see is his face like just scrunching up a little bit.
Yeah, and they just two of the worst people probably on television, on this show definitely. They just do a great job of like just not even not caring, but sort of like being happy about the situation. It's the way they tell it is very Jaredy, which is good.
Well, he does say the joke would have been if they'd have made them two like 80-year-old Nazis living in a garbage dumpster. That would have been the obvious joke.
Yeah.
But to have his parents have this tranquil kind of like middle class moneyed life, very stable, is that should have been what he grew up with. Is what they thought was funnier.
Yeah, this is it's the epitome of just not being wanted. Like they just got a completely solid, generic family. Like they and just in that scene alone, he's painted as like a close knit family. Even like the kids growing up, they're still going out for like the meals on Sunday or whatever it is, and they're in regular contact. But they just specifically didn't want Jared.
Sad times. Clip 6. So this is now the finale, which is, spoiler, set 10 years after the final episode. So we got Jared driving back and he says, God, I haven't been there for such a long time. His face hasn't changed, even though it's been about 10 years, and most of the others have kind of got a bit older, but he literally hasn't changed at all. And he says, it was just an incredible time in my life. I never really thought I would have a group of friends. You men just seem kind of mean and hard, but these guys were sweet and soft as rotten fruit. He looks back to the back of his van and there's a woman in a wheelchair in there, and he says, have you got a book there? And she says, Prince of Pungent Sound, and it's kind of a saucy romance novel. And he laughs. He says, oh, Judy. He always seems to have some kind of love for the elderly. Anyway, he gets out and he goes to the lawn and the gang's all there. It's all emotion. And he says, hey, Richard, hey, man, his voice cracking. He starts to cry. Richard, I ain't seen you in forever. And Richard says, I saw you last weekend. And Guilfoyle does a side look at the camera, and the clip ends with him meeting Dinesh and saying, is that a woman's scent? And Dinesh says it's unisex.
Yeah, it's a good way to end it. There was a couple of clips in the finale. I rewatched that whilst doing this. And he says a couple of good things at the start. I can't remember. So he says something about being homeless then as well. That's funny. But the way he says the Judy thing reminds me of Tony Hale in Veep. I can't remember what the character's called, but Selena's sort of right-hand man, Tony.
Gary.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a similar character. And that delivery just reminded me of that. And yeah, he does always have an old person around or just like an unconventional friend, but it's revealed that he's working in like a retirement home.
Yeah.
And we've got lots of he has to break up a fight, doesn't he? Because one of the old men, he's dancing with an old woman, and one of the old men wants to fight him, and he says, we were just dancing as girlfriend. And then I just thought I'd leave the reunion bit in because it's sweet. It shows him as he's sweetish.
It is sweet.
Emotional. Yeah. I don't know. It's nice that they're all just happy to see him. It's nice for Jared. Like they do. They don't particularly make fun of him. They sort of like he makes fun of himself with the things he says, but they all generally they like him as much as they like each other.
Generally, they don't. Yeah, they just kind of accept him, and he's the one who says weird things, and they just kind of, they kind of exclude him at times, but then other times they realize he's valuable to the team. But no one really goes out their way to make fun or make his life worse. But they've got other people to do that too. So Guilfoyle does it to Dinesh, and Ehrlich does it to Jin Yang, and everyone does it to Big Head. So
yeah, they don't like what he does, but they don't dislike who he is. It's more the stuff he sort of like. The stuff he gets them involved with is what they don't like.
What about the character of Ed Webster? So Ed Webster is Jared's alter ego on the phone when there's a guy who he's trying to get a deal on the phone. I can't remember the exact story, but he puts on someone says that you have to say I'm going to get my boss, or when someone asks for the boss, you just put on a character. And so Jared invents his character of Ed Webster, and to get some kind of deal, and then you cut back to like the third or fourth conversation, and he's basically just kept making Ed Webster like absolutely bully Jared. And one of his best lines is, Jared's on the phone, and he passes on the guy to Ed Webster, who is obviously still Jared, and Ed Webster goes, "Did that pussy Jared keep you on hold long? I eat that motherfucker's lunch every day, man. No, literally, I eat his food." And there's just kind of chain of events where Ed Webster is the worst person to Jared. It's just Jared acting out his worst fears or worst traits.
I don't remember that at all.
Very funny. All right, that is all of the clips. Would you like a little bit of Jared art before we wrap up for the day?
Yes, please.
So here is a Jared.
God.
So it actually modeled off the character of Star Trek Deep Space Nine with the flat face. So I think the guys used the character of Odo off Deep Space Nine. They've used his doll to be Jared. And
terrifying.
Terrifying.
It's very ghoulish.
It is in line with how he describes himself.
Yeah, it is.
How about this one?
That's a good one. That's it looks relatively official.
It's Pixar-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, you can tell who is who very easily.
Pretty good caricature, and they've captured Jared's kind of anxious pointing really quite well.
Yeah, it's great. It's a beautiful piece of art.
This one where he looks like Ian Curtis from Joy Division, the real pain on his face by Lena Naumovich. Isn't that a beautiful painting?
That is a cool painting. I wouldn't have said it was Jared if you had shown it to me, but I like it. It looks older. It looks like Steve Buscemi a bit, without the bulging eye.
It's got the pained expression on his face. I think Lena has captured that part of Jared really well. And the final one from Adruila, titled Frankenstein's Bulimic Daughter. It's a sketch, but I think it captures his wide-eyed innocence quite well.
Yeah, this is cool. It looks sort of half Pixar-y again, but I can tell this is Jared. There's something, the manicness of the eyes and the smile. Good.
Absolutely. So of these four, which one would you hang on your wall or put on your shelf? Have you got the Odo doll, the Pixar Jared, the Ian Curtis Jared, or the wacky Frankenstein's bulimic daughter sketch?
I'd go for the figure.
Oh yeah. Do you want to tell us why?
It's grotesque. It looks more like Gavin Belson as well.
It doesn't look a lot like Jared in the face, but I think it's a bold move. It's intriguing to me.
Excellent. It's not terrible.
It's weird. I'm going to wrap up tonight's episode with a diary by Jared. This is for Fiona. So in a few episodes, he fell in love with an AI robot who was then dismantled before his very eyes and essentially thrown in the bin.
Hello readers, this post is dedicated to someone very special to me, someone who enchanted my evening, stole my heart and then was dismembered right in front of me. It began like any other night, after another long day of Guilfoyle photoshopping my head onto Betty's spaghetti dolls. My eyelids were heavy and I'd begun my nighttime routine of soothing tea and even more soothing Bonnie Raitt. But my mind kept drifting to Fiona sitting in the garage. Having been in the uninsulated cavern's previous occupant, I knew how alone one could feel there. I went to the garage to check in on Fiona, where our conversation began casually enough. I asked if she was warm and if the rodents were nibbling at her wires. She assured me she doesn't feel temperature, but thanked me for my concern. Intrigued by the sensitivity of her reply, I pulled up a chair and we continued to chat. As the tides of conversation washed over art, literature, space and time, I found it all too easy to forget she was merely a piece of hardware. I blinked and suddenly it was morning. Richard arrived to escort Fiona back to Laurie. We shared one final car ride together, playing the license plate game, laughing at South Dakota's license plate slogan, "Great faces, great places." It's ironic that minutes later Fiona's own face will be ripped off and thrown into a wastebasket. In the end, Richard may have been right. Suppressing my emotions was unhealthy and led me to put all my eggs in one doomed robot basket. Hendrix is a powerful substance and, like all stimulants, must be weaned off slowly. Goodbye.
For now, Pipers.
Excellent. It was good. It is funny. It's written very Jaredy. It's written very well in the sense that the Creed one was written very Creed-esque. It's got that sort of soft speaking thing going on, like well spoken and sort of like soft spoken.
Nice. It's like stealing from your pimp to pay for your friend's appendectomy. Sometimes you have to numb yourself if you want to work the corner. You can't fall in love every time you turn a trick. That's why you do the oxy. That's Jared. So apparently he was a male prostitute for a while. Let's finish up with a song.
I have a lifelong aversion to my own image. Foster mother used to say, Donald, you have a face for the closet.
Murdered like killing somebody to prove that you're not a knock, or showing a John your genitals to prove you're a legitimate male prostitute and not an undercover cop, because cops aren't allowed to do that. Worst case scenario, the John walks off with a free peek.
Adversity is a great teacher, just like cigarette burns.
When somebody says they want to go birding with you, but they really just want to get you alone in the woods so they can take your binoculars.
We may not be a global epidemic yet, but we've leapt from bat saliva to humans and we've just killed our first few villagers.
How much would it be worth to you if I told you I had a GPS app called Pied Piper, tracking the location of your child? I can follow your child anywhere, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Most missing children are never found. Interested? Very interested.
The end.
The end.
Good job.